Welcome to the Birding Conversations podcast, where we have open conversations about the diverse range of challenges that women can experience during pregnancy and after birth. So with this floor that we opened up today about conversations, we're going to try to start and change how a mom feels about herself, the stigma and the shame that comes along with perinatal disorders. So my first guest today is part of my team, Zissy Rosenberg, which is my case manager and takes most of the intakes. And she's the first voice a mom speaks to. So Zissy, you play a very important role. You maybe want to tell us something about yourself.
Sure, thank you. So my name is Zissy Rosenberg, and actually have a special ed degree, master's degree, and I'm going on now to social work. I do enjoy to entertain other people. So when I pick up that call, I'm thinking first, how am I going to make her day today? I know that she's suffering. I know that she's calling for a reason that is not too easy to hear. How am I going to make this conversation make it her day?
You know, we say that when we choose a job, anything we choose to do in life, there is something why, even when kids dress up. Why do they choose to dress up a certain way? So there is something that is drawing you to mother's health and to family wellness.
Yeah, so it was like this job came into my hands. It was something that I appreciate so much. And the reason why I was so happy to accept it was because I myself am a woman. I speak to women. My friends are mostly women, and they're all saying the same thing. I'm exhausted. I'm tired. I'm after a baby. I'm before a baby. I feel like I never recovered. And each of them to a different level. Some of them you can actually see their pain. Some of them you can see it even in their kids. What I found when I was talking to parents for the first time when they were calling Sparks was each of them had obviously a different way of expressing of how they're feeling. Some weren't so happy to talk about it and started talking about other things until they felt comfortable. I say my initial call, the first call that came into Sparks when I was still not so sure about if I'm doing it the right way or not, but I said, if I am a woman, I should know what she's feeling. And that first call was about someone that wasn't even comfortable to talk to me at first. Someone else called on her behalf. And
Which
I said,
we see a lot.
We do
We see that a lot. But I have to say that with years and times, when Sparks opened back up in 2007, I can tell you that most of the calls came as an anonymous, to the extent that they gave fake phone numbers, fake emails, mostly. And with time, I see what you're mentioning, which we still have, of course, that they cannot get themselves to call for themselves, but it's getting much better. So we see that the talking about something and spreading the word and not shying away from it is something that helps so much stigma and shame. So your experience with that first mom that didn't call herself still shows us where the stigma is out. And yeah.
And when I was talking to people after I said I was going to get into this field, the first statement people saying, oh, my mother used to have this. I have a friend that I want to call her to make sure she's okay. You know, that she will call you. I have a family member. I have someone else that I know that can use the services. And I asked them, didn't you reach out to anybody before? Like, didn't you know? Their answer was, we knew that something was wrong, but we didn't know whom to call, and there is so little information. They're not sure if it's even okay to feel that way, like if it's even okay to talk about it. You're supposed to make it. You're supposed to be managing. You're supposed to have a nice family of kids, and you're supposed to be okay.
Right. And women in general, a lot of them feel that burden that they're just a creation that's supposed to be perfect, and always running about what is it that I need to do, not what is about what I want to do. Now, to do things that we need to do, it's okay, makes sense. We're responsible adults and there are things we need to do. But what I find, just elaborating on what you said, is giving yourself a little permission to what is it that I want to do? And is it even okay for me to speak up? Is it even okay for me to reach out for help? Is it okay for me to share? How, not even how someone else is going to look at me, how is it that I'm going to observe myself and look at myself and judge myself? So is something like judgment something you see when you take an initial call?
All the time, I would have women saying, um, I feel bad for my kids. I feel bad for my husband. They wouldn't say, I feel bad for myself. So that's 100% judgment.
Sure. 100%. It is a judgment. And when you take those calls, like going back a little to stigma, if you want to tell me a little bit more where you see, if you see the shame, the fear, the embarrassment, the fear of the unknown, where is this call going to go to? What's going to happen as a result of that? Is that something that you're familiar with? Do I sound familiar to you?
100%. One of the calls was someone herself is a professional, and she wanted to know how many people are going to be involved in her case that are going to find out of what she is going through because she herself talks to professionals. And then there was another case which she comes from a very close-knit community, and I tried to figure out different ways of her to feel better while she was also going to go for help. But she says, I can't talk to my friends about this because my friends are not going to shut their mouth. It's going to get to my mother. My mother is not going to be happy to hear this because it's all so taboo.
Yeah. So what you're reminding me when you say that, it brings me back, like still in the days when I just mentioned that stigma was even so much more than it is now. So thank God this is changing a little bit slowly. But going back to about 15, 16 years ago, and I hosted in Muncie an event for awareness only. And there were like different community leaders and just private women. And there were about 60 moms there. And one of them was a sister to the hostess. And after the event, she went over. I was talking to her. She came over to me and she says, "Thank you so much, Esther. You saved my life." I didn't know who she is and what. And I said, "Oh, that's nice to hear. How are you doing?" And her sister, the one that hosted the event, she just opened a pair of eyes. She looked at her sister like she's coming off the moon. And she said, "Shandy, you are not well? How did I not know about it? We're such close sisters." And she said to her, "Even mom didn't know. No one knew." So that's just to add on to what you were saying. And then when you are with those calls, do you see how other issues? So perinatal is basically a hormonal disorder. Even we think it's a mental illness, it has mental/emotional symptoms, but it is a hormonal disorder. And some moms are more sensitive to hormonal changes than others. It's like you said, like every mother is probably going to have some degree of understanding her hormones are shifting in one way or the other. I believe that most of them, 1 in 5, experience it to a higher, even more than 1 in 5, 1 in 5 officially, I would say. But when you take that call, do you see how other issues also come into I would say, to the situation? And it's not just the hormones. Like, what do you find?
It's interesting that you're bringing that up. Usually, when I get that call or make that call, I somehow hear or feel between the lines that there is another something that is actually playing a role here. Sometimes, and they're usually not willing to bring it up right away, right? I'm fine. There's nothing really wrong with me. It's just something that's happening, right? And I would somehow bring in only when it's appropriate to say, when I was younger, I was on medication. And they were like, "Can I talk to you?"
Oh my God.
Or, when
You're
I was
really
younger,
opening up a floor for
I
conversation.
a
Big time.
100%. Or I would say, I totally understand what you're saying. Can I say something similar that happened to me and tell me if you relate to? And I would say, I used to think that I was going to die and I was perfectly fine. And she's like, "So tell me that I'm normal. Tell me that I'm okay. Tell me that I'm going to make it through this. Tell me that the medication is going to help." You know what? Like all of a sudden, you don't feel alone. They thought they were talking to a professional. Here they see, talking to someone that actually went through the same thing. I'm not saying that it's always the right thing to do to say, "Hey, I also had a challenge that, we can shake hands." I don't think it's always the time. Like say,
Sometimes I wish I can say that. Sometimes I wish, like my son always says, "Mom, if you can just say that you're a survivor, it would be so much better for Sparks." And I say, "But what if I wasn't?" So, because you are right, there is nothing more comforting to a person as hearing, "I have been in the same or similar," because obviously there are not two cases the same, but I have been in something similar. It dead mom that speaks to you and she's on the other side of the phone. I can just right now even imagine how much light you bring into her life. And thank you, Zissy, for being so brave. And it's so much light you bringing in. It's like so many things that are happening at that time. First, you're really giving real validation, real empathy, and also normalizing a situation. And even more than all that is the hope. The hope is there because, like you said, am I ever going to get out of there? That tunnel, when it's dark, it's so hard to see the light at the end of it. So, absolutely.
it's very hard to prove to them that there is light at the end of the tunnel when you just have a conversation over the phone and asking them the typical questions of, "How's your day? How are you feeling? How's your eating patterns, sleeping patterns? Does anybody else have it in the family?" And usually these questions can make them feel like, "Oh, you see, I'm doomed. She's asking it from me because this is what it means and this is what I'm feeling and this is where, I'm stuck." But then when I can bring an example, and again, only when it makes sense,
Right,
it's unbelievable, the response.
right. I can just imagine. I can just imagine as you talking to me and I'm talking to you, but I'm also thinking at the same time and just imagining how a conversation like that looks like. Because answering so many calls myself, thousands of calls in the past 16 plus years. So I also heard so many different, I would call shapes and forms and situations that it's really something very, very big that, and you do. And going back to what we spoke before, so in many cases, you're saying that you see some other issues that take place.
That can either be a cause to what they're feeling now
Or maybe even a trigger.
or a trigger.
Yeah. The cause can, even when the cause, let's say, is pure hormonal, there can still be triggers. The way I like to call it is when the ocean is wavy, a lot of garbage comes out.
Yeah.
And the ocean is wavy. When mom's hormones are upside down, it's a very big wave.
And I usually give them credit for making that call or letting people support them because a lot of times it's our instinct to say that I'm fine and I'm okay. And I recently heard that most women say they start off their day and the first question they ask the person, "How are you?" And they answer back, I'm fine. And how are you? Right? That's the question that comes back, and they say, I'm fine. And then they go home and then they tell their addictions, no, I'm not fine.
Yeah.
And for each mom, it's a different thing, whether it is going back into the depression or going back to the anxiety mode. It's not something they can really help themselves because of the status that they're in at that point.
So words have a very strong power. So also, I think we were taught that if we're just going to say, how are you doing? Oh, I'm doing great. So that energy will follow. And if we're going to use negative words, then we get into self-pity. Now, I'm not going to contradict that words are not powerful. They are powerful. But here comes the fine line between what is the words I'm using to what I really feel, to being in denial, to putting up a self-defense. They're so thin. It's such thin lines between one to the other. So what I hear from you is a lot of moms make believe.
Yes.
And that make believe doesn't serve them right. It doesn't. And now when they call, how are most of them? Is anyone else in their family involved? Their husbands, a family member, a support, or they call very, very alone? Are they alone in this?
So from the callers, most of them are the people that are in need of help. And when I ask them about their support system, it depends where they're coming from. If they have their parents local, or if the husband is knowledgeable to a certain extent to understand what they're going through. A lot of them who are experiencing it for the first time and after first baby, the husbands are just not knowledgeable and they feel so misunderstood.
Right. Because altogether, marriage is such a change of dynamics. It's like you become from one person, you become two people. All of a sudden, it's someone else that you live with, feel responsible for, share your life with. And then when a baby comes on, and if the couple is not prepared enough, and her hormonal change and the hormonal transitioning are not that smooth, it can be very, very, very big burden. Absolutely. So education is the key.
Yeah, 100%. That's what I was going to say. Like, I'm not saying anything negative about the husbands. They're definitely there. They want to help. It's just the missing piece of education.
Yeah, they don't know.
Right.
They don't know. And they don't know what hit themselves.
Right.
They have no clue. So why would you think that hosting a podcast for birthing conversations is so important? How do you see that podcast? Where do you see it going from your point of view?
Number one, it's just a form of getting more information, another platform of getting more information. I don't think people understand how severe this can be. I can have calls, we had calls coming in from one extreme to the other extreme. One extreme meaning the woman was okay. It's the first time that she's really having a bad day. She can get up, she can do everything that she needs to. You see her on the street, you would never think she's going through a hard time. And on the other side of the coin, there was someone else calling for them because they were on the verge of something bad happening, right? And the I would say the society or the community is oblivious to what's going on. These women know how to hide so well. We don't even, I mean, we don't know. We know how well
Unbelievable.
we can hide.
Unbelievable. In our business, my husband says that sometimes a mom comes in and hands over to him an envelope with just a thank you letter, which is always so heartwarming to receive. And I know somehow they know he's my husband, and they ask if he can give me over this letter. And then he comes home, he knows nothing about the mom, or, everything is very, very confidential. But he just comes home, and sometimes when he hands me over that letter, and it happened many times, he kind of becomes pale. He says, but I saw her. She looks 100 plus percent put together and well. How is that possible? And I tell him, you wouldn't believe how possible it is. Okay, in that case, it's already a thank you letter. She's doing better now, at least, or she's well. I said, but you cannot imagine moms that when I speak to them, or if I get to see them, and how much no one in the world would know. So that's why we, not just that we can judge others, but even ourselves. Like, we need to be kind to ourselves and understand that the way we feel is the way we feel, and that is something to be addressed. Don't ignore it. Don't think it's just going to disappear. Did you ever have when a mom was saying to you, I should have, I could have, like, I should have done this better. I should have known better. I shouldn't have been so obsessively worried about my child's sleep.
I know that they're thinking a lot. I didn't have that many that was so expressive in saying, because they're scared to say that.
Yeah.
They're feeling it. They're feeling that why didn't I do enough? Why didn't I think? Or why was I so scared?
Yeah. So I had this over the years, and my response always was, if you could have, you would have.
You're saying giving them the support.
Yes.
Of
if
don't
you
get...
don't blame yourself. If you could have, you would have.
I had one call which she was constantly asking me of what else she can do to calm herself down. I felt like she was at an anxious point where she couldn't even listen to what I was saying while she was asking for more support. Like, do you think the medication is going to kick in? Do you think I should go do shliach hakein? Do you think I should? These are true. Do you think I should do the Ein Har thing?
You're reminding me, Dr. Twersky. He always mentioned that how many calls he got over the years, if it was from husbands, from parents, in-laws, you name it, and ask for all kind of skulos and things to do. And he would say, this is chemical, it's hormonal, it's a real thing. Like, to say Tehillim is always nice, but don't connect the two of them, that because or if it's a real condition. And I find that because it can be so well hidden, as you mentioned, that's why it's maybe hard for others to understand and believe how real this is and what a real condition this is.
Yeah, they were saying, a few of them were saying, what's going to happen? This is taking so long and everyone's going to find out. And my first response was going to be, if I wouldn't be in the field, nobody cares, nobody looks, nobody sees, nobody chaps, you know? But that's not what they really want to hear.
So what would be your response?
My response to that would be, what would you feel like? What do you think is going to happen if they find out?
Right.
Just not always is it that scary.
Yeah. Not always is it that scary.
And the response, I bet you, is going to be, oh, me too. You know what else?
Yeah.
That's what I think.
So I think that giving that support and that kind of, even that tranquilizer of, it's okay to feel the way you feel. The hope you will be okay. Taking away that fear of sharing, of stigma, of understanding that does not reflect of who you are, not as a person, not as a mom. It has nothing to do with your personality, nothing to do with your character. It's just the same as if someone with a heart condition, it doesn't make them be bad. I think that's really something that if just that can click in, besides for a path of help and health and of course digging in more where this is coming from, and there are many which we will be doing on the next episode, understanding it more clinically. But just even getting that okay, that you are okay, and normalizing it and not losing the hope.
So what you're saying is just let it sink in. Recognition is the first.
Recognition and acceptance is not that easy, like it said, but even recognition and normalizing it. I remember being once at the event, and the event was Eat, Pray, and Love. That was the name of the event, and was a nice one. And came over to me a mom, and she goes to me like, I felt like almost someone is here to attack me, because she came over with that face, and she goes, "Do you know how depression feels?" And I'm like, honestly, no, because I haven't experienced it. But can I understand? I don't know. But can I understand? I think I could. I didn't just study it, I live it. I speak to moms. I try to put myself in their shoes. So she says, "No, you can't really understand." I said, "That is true. Really understand? From what you're telling me, I guess you experienced it. So maybe you want to tell me." And she goes, "Yes, I did. And I'll tell you how it feels. You swim in the middle of the ocean. It's very, very, very high waves. You're drowning and you see no way out."
Well described.
And that was even tough to listen. So the good news is that with early intervention, we see so much moms coming out of it. So there is light at the end of the tunnel. And I think if we can just leave them with that message, that for itself is very powerful. So I'm going to give you the last words to close our conversation. What is it that you would like the audience to take away and from our conversation today? What is the most powerful message you want to give?
I want that whoever has a heartbeat and is called a woman should listen to this and understand that either they are in need of help or somebody that is right next to them is in need of help. And don't deny it. Don't look past when somebody says, "Oh yeah, I'm okay, I'm managing." I learned when someone asked me, "So how's your day going?" I said, "Not that good." That's usually my response, because I believe that's what people need to hear. It is okay that it's not that good. And just learn to accept and learn more. And then you'll be able to help others. Recognize
And
when
yourself.
And yourself. Recognize when there is
Don't be
emergency.
shy. Don't shy away.
100%. 100%.
Just pick up that call.
Yes.
Even if you're not sure. Even if it's a maybe.
Right.
Just call up. Raise your voice.
Right.
Speak.
Right.
Someone on the other side will be listening to you, and will be able not just to listen, but also to guide you.
Yes.
And from something that can stay so small, we don't want it to flare up.
Right. People don't realize that if someone's actually suffering from postpartum depression, it is not something that goes away, and it needs to be treated.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So thank you so much, Zissy.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. Totally my pleasure.